We promise we have not changed our name, although, given what's been happening in Erie in the last couple of weeks, you could make the argument that maybe we should. Hey everybody, welcome in. Gem City Sports Podcast tonight on a Wednesday. We are so pumped, excited to have you in this evening. It's a great show lined up. We've had so much going on as we hit the month of July, whether it is name changes with teams, whether it's great baseball with the Seawolves, and yeah, the Steelers decided that they wanted to have some crazy fun with their lineup and say, let's play the game of pick the best roster from 2021 and assemble that 4 years past their prime. Anyway, we get into all that in just a few minutes. Great show lined up for you tonight. We got a full house in studio. Nick Artman, Paul Adamczyk, and Wayne Bradford going to join me in just a moment. Our show, though, as always, is brought to you by our friends at Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, you can make it simple on yourself. Head over to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number during normal business hours at 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. That is the number to dial, and Rebich Investments, as always, keeping financial guidance simple. We are joined happily tonight by Nick Artman, Paul Adamczyk, and, of course, Hallie Parker, who is working behind the scenes with us tonight. Gentlemen, it is good to see you both. I am excited to see some purple coming up in the next few weeks, but you guys enjoying the outside out there?
Too hot.
Absolutely.
No. Get out of here. I moved here to Erie for the winters. I am the anti-Erie. Or maybe I'm I don't know how that works. Either way, I'm too hot. I am thankful my studio is in the basement. It is nice and cool down here.
I disagree wholeheartedly. This is these days are the only reason to live here. Finally, I can go outside and not die of heat exhaustion or of frostbite, hypothermia. So I thought today was beautiful. I took care of the yard front and back, got everything cleaned up, took a shower, feeling pumped up for tonight, fellas.
You know, I'm kind of disappointed, Nick, and Paul, I appreciate you as the soon-to-be dad here. I think you're getting prepped for it. One of the things I love about summer is dad activities. So I am now guilty as charged, a fan of mowing the lawn, power washing. What else is there? Making sure that the car is cleaned out, right? Whether that's vacuuming out the car. I like putting out mulch and plants in my front yard. Oh, yeah. Allie has gotten me into gardening a little bit. We've done a lot of strawberry plants this year. I'm like full go. I'm full bore. So the way that I see it is that if I'm going to be, in the summer here and as a dad, I'm full into this, Paul. So I hope you'll join me because it clearly seems that Nick is not on this train.
Dude, I didn't realize these were dad activities. I've been doing these. I enjoy those activities as a single, alone person, all the way up through married and through now a soon-to-be dad. I just enjoy being outside doing yard work. I don't know. It's an affliction.
As long as I can be near the water, I'm good. Like, send me to Waldameer. I will pull past it all day. I will go to the lake. I will wash the car. I will do anything that has to deal with water. But, like, sitting outside, and I mow the grass because I have to. But, like, gardening in the heat? No. Get out of here with that.
The funniest part about that comment is that you choose Waldameer when you identify water in downtown Erie.
Hey, listen, we get season passes, buddy. I will go to Waldameer every day. I love going.
I'll tell you what, their water park is really good, though. You can't beat that no matter what age you are.
Catch me in the wave pool with my straw hat. Come up and say hi.
I just like how he said it. He was like, I like going to amusement parks more than I like doing yard work. Like, yeah, Nick, we know. Like, that's everybody.
Get on my level, fellas.
Nick's camping out in one of those cabanas by that big water slide that you normally see. He's got one reserved for himself all year. Well, at least we have him here now.
Nick is the lazy river. He's I can just see him parked on one of those circular little floaty things.
Not that this is a Waldameer Not that this is a Waldameer podcast, but the lazy river drives me crazy. Those little kids that run around with their little tubes and they think it's like bumper boats. Get out of here. Go to the bumper cars. This is lazy river. Look,
apparently, Nick is now.
Now you got me upset.
Nick Artman is now the Dawn, apparently, of Waldameer as well, which is exciting. So there you go, Nick. Congratulations. You've earned yourself a new title there.
I'll take it.
Luckily for Nick, we do this show on Wednesdays, the one day of the week Waldameer is closed, so he doesn't have to miss any time in the pool on Wednesday. But, gentlemen, we're going to start this show tonight before we get to Wayne Bradford in a few minutes. And, by the way, later in the show, all three of us and Wayne Bradford, so four of us, are going to be doing 3 trades that we think the Bills, Browns, and Steelers should make to make their team better before the start of the year. This, of course, off the back of Jalen Ramsey being traded to Pittsburgh for Minka Fitzpatrick. We'll get into the deets in just a second. But I wanted to start tonight's episode with talking about the story that, of course, quite literally everyone on planet Earth is talking about, and that would be none other than these great fellas. The Erie Moon Mammoths is the new name of the Erie Seawolves, at least for a few theme nights on July 19th. John Oliver and his team, as we talked about on this show, as was discussed for quite some time, coming up with this interesting name. I don't think any of us anticipated it, right? We came up with our ideas and names, and I think they were all good, but nothing like this. I wanted to get your guys' reaction to the Erie Moon Mammoths and the story behind it. It's fascinating, but what are your thoughts, guys, on the name selection and what to make of this brand new, do we call him a cuddly mascot? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Nick.
So we talked about this a little bit on Monday too, and at first I heard it because it was like rapid reaction Monday morning, right? I was like, I'm out. I don't like it. It didn't make sense to me, even after reading the press release. I'm not a big fan of purple, as you kind of led to at the beginning of the show. But the more I look at this, and then when I hear the story, and I start to think about the meaning behind it, and I am a fan. I don't know that I like it more than Seawolves. I don't know that I've got there yet. But in terms of like an alternative jersey, and then thinking about all the different theme nights that the team over there at UPMC Park are going to be able to have fun with this, I think it's great. I am so excited about it. Purple is not my color. Being a big guy, if I'm wearing purple, I kind of just give off Barney the dinosaur vibes. But I will absolutely buy that hat and wear it on a future show as soon as I can find one in 7 7/8.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different than Nick. I love the purple and black. I look great in purple. Isaac, rather, you said that everyone on Earth is talking about this. I think this is an intergalactic phenomenon being talked about throughout the galaxy. This is prehistoric and interstellar. I love it. Something that the press release mentioned was how deep that the researchers for the John Oliver show go. I got to be honest with you. I had never heard of this moon mammoth. I did not realize that there was a skeleton that came from our area. I told Nick on Monday, I've actually fished in Lake Pleasant, had no idea that there was woolly mammoth activity in the area. So I love the research. I love the name. It is so on brand for like minor league baseball teams. It's so niche. It is so eerie. I think it's just fantastic that they're getting national recognition. I love the name. I love the colors. I really love the sew out of the woolly mammoth and the space helmet thing. I'm getting a hat. I think it's fantastic for Erie. I think it's a great name. And it is an A++ promotion.
You guys should know, Hallie, the intern hanging out behind the scenes producing the show tonight. I did ding her on her midterm evaluation for not finding this, that John Oliver's researchers were better than ours. So just figured I'd bring that up. Hallie, that one's for you.
Well, I give her a pass because none of us knew. So and
we had Joel.
Around.
The Joel Natale was producing.
Didn't know.
Yeah, he was producing for us on Monday. He had no idea as well.
Well, and here's the funny thing is that I think it was funny because when we all brought up the ideas of what would we name our teams, the one name that we all came to a consensus on that we didn't pick but we thought would make sense were the Erie Pizza Bombers, right? Because that's the big story that we always hear about. It's famous to Erie. Every year there is at least a tidbit in the national news about what happened on that day decades back. But this is one of those unknown stories that I don't think people realize. And I think the positive about this specific moon mammoth, I think it does a few things. Number one is it shows that Erie's got a lot more backbone and history to it than just what's on the water and who bombed, the pizza place or whatever.
Admiral Perry only gets you so far.
Right. And I think number two, what it does is, and I think this is just something that is going to be such a positive for the Seawolves, this is going to be a marketing boom. I think to be able to be the first, who knows if John Oliver is going to do this again. We'd love to have him on the show at some point. But if he does do this again, this is really setting the precedent for, I think, what has been just a absolutely tremendous marketing chance for this Seawolves team. Now, the one thing that I do think is going to be very interesting is how often do they wear this jersey? They're of course going to have it a few days this season, but if they have the gear, guys, clearly they're going to be able to do this again. And everyone was talking about, okay, is the Seawolves going to go away? It's not going to go away, but I personally wouldn't be upset if Moon Mammoth stayed. I think it's great. But how many times do they wear this now? And I think maybe this could be something that's in their rotation now of jerseys, of the 1.5 million jerseys they already have.
Oh, I think it would absolutely be in the rotation.
I think it will. The Erie Pepperoni Balls get a couple games a year. I think the Erie Moon Mammoth should also get a couple games a year.
There it is one more time. And you know what the funny thing is? I do want to make a mention, too, which I find funny. So, of course, Moon Mammoths is purple here. We're showing, by the way, this is from a graphic from the Erie Seawolves on the gear that you can get at seawolves.com. We're going to give them a bit of free pub here because I was looking at the Facebook comments, and there are people that are, like, crazy for this gear. They started buying it at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night or 12:01 a.m. Monday morning. That's how quickly it was. And it was funny because I was talking with Bob Shreve, who, of course, has worked with the Seawolves for many years. And, he loves the idea of the name. He thinks it's going to be an awesome promotion. But the one thing that he told me, and I thought this was funny, is that the Seawolves have a million different jerseys, right? You go to a game, if you went to every single Seawolves game during a 6-game homestand, the one thing that you would notice is that none of their 2 jersey combinations are the same. They're not going to wear the same jersey almost every game. And yet, purple is about the one color that they do not have in their arsenal yet. They have red, they have yellow, they have white, they have black, they have some orange. No purple.
I like it.
It makes sense.
I think it rounds it out.
This was like a targeted thing because even I was getting sponsored New Era ads like Monday by lunch for the sale of the hats. So let's go. And you talked about the fluffy mascot. I think it's great. I think the mascot running around Erie, running through the stands, partnering with Seawolf. I think there's going to be some shenanigans to be had there as well.
Well, he does have a sort of a gritty vibe to him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The Philadelphia Flyers mascot, gritty.
Yep.
He kind of puts off that kind of vibe, but I don't know. I think it'll be cool.
And go ahead, Nick.
I tweeted it out. I'm sorry, I posted it out on X. I guess, still make sure that I'm in the know. But I posted it out on X. See, that doesn't even make sense. I tweeted it out on X, and they did an epic reveal of the mascot as well. You can find that. The Seawolves posted that too. It's a really fun way to kind of even introduce the mascot. So I'm here for it. I think it's a great move for Erie. I think it's a great job by John Oliver and the team to find that pool and to be able to honestly just putting a bunch of resources. There's no downside to this whatsoever in my mind.
No. And by the way, as Nick pointed out, he texted me earlier, it's nice to see that Gabe Alvarez made an appearance for the Moon Mammoths reveal. Does that not look John Oliver in a hat with glasses? Does it not look exactly like Gabe Alvarez?
The shadowing? Absolutely.
Yeah. There is one photo where I thought they actually photoshopped it and photoshopped it with the wrong manager. Like I thought
really?
they put like Gabe Alvarez as the manager and it wasn't, but here, no, it was just John Oliver.
Man, Gabe Alvarez spends all this time in Erie, has an incredible run. He doesn't get to participate in the Moon Mammoths. I'm sure they'll send him a jersey at some point, though. That guy deserves it. But Andrew Graham and company on July 19th, we're excited about it. We're going to be there either as fans or however we're there. We're excited to be part of it, too. So that's coming up in 17 days. So more than excited for that coming up here. All right, of course, as we've talked about, Gem City Sports, we are glad to be partnering with Rebich Investments. They do such great work with making financial guidance simple. If you want more info, go to the website, www.rebichinvestments.com. 814-734-3433 is the number to dial. 814-734-3433 is the number to dial. All right, let's switch gears and talk NFL. And for that, we haven't forgotten about him, I promise, Coach Wayne Bradford rejoins the show tonight. Coach, it's good to see you.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having me.
What's
Happy
up,
4th of July
Coach?
Weekend.
Oh, listen to that. Coach
He's
is
a
already
busy
on
man.
the phone making trades. He's ready to go.
Are you getting what? We got Brandon Bean on the line. I'm sure Omar Khan's on speed dial.
It's my son. He's probably like, hey, have you gotten into the show yet? You said 8:10. So.
Well,
Somebody's
Nick,
got to keep you online.
We appreciate the loyal listening from one Nick Bradford. Your thoughts, Wayne, first of all, on the Erie Moon Mammoths. Would you have chosen a different name?
I love it. I think it's fantastic. I watched the show, and I'm a big fan of John Oliver. I think he is fantastic. Can't get enough of him. But I love it. I think it's a fantastic story. I love the color. I love the brightness, and I know you guys talked about it, but what a great video. What a great intro and first class. I think it's great for the city.
We knew you'd love the color, of course, Wayne. That was obvious. They played to your strengths there. The Seawolves knew. John Oliver knew. He knows how big of a fan you are too. That's pretty clear. All right, so let's chat NFL. News continues to break, guys. And did the trade go down after Monday's show or before Monday's show? I don't remember.
Literally as soon as we
went
signed
off
off
the air.
Yeah,
perfect.
As soon as we signed off, I picked up my phone. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
So we have all four of us to be able to discuss. So let's start with this, guys. The Steelers, in case you missed it Monday, so they trade away Minkah Fitzpatrick. They get Jalen Ramsey in a trade that involves three of our four favorite teams from three of the four of us on this show. I want to start with this, Coach, and your reaction first and foremost before we get to our trades to the Steelers trade for Jalen Ramsey. It started with Aaron Rodgers, of course. Pittsburgh goes to the draft, they draft defense, and there's been so much talk about how Pittsburgh spends so much on defense, and you know how important defense is. But does this trade make sense to you when you saw the trade for Ramsey?
Well, if you want to beat the Chiefs and the Bills, you better have a nickel corner, So it's a passing league and a passing game. So you make yourself better there. You can play man-to-man on the slot. So obviously Ramsey is very talented. He's won a Super Bowl. And Fitzpatrick, I love the guy. He's an Alabama Nick Saban guy. But there were times in the past couple years where there were some communication gaps back there, and he's a little slower of foot. Not that he's not a great player, and a great culture guy. I find it very interesting to kind of read the take that there are some Nick Saban guys leaving the room. So it's very interesting. You got a Najee Harris and you got a Minkah Fitzpatrick, guys that know how to win. Understand greatness, and you've got this kind of Pittsburgh Steeler aura of they do everything great, but they haven't lived that mantra lately. So I find that very interesting that two of Saban's guys are out of the room now.
Nick, you got to take on this for sure. You texted us the group chat as soon as this trade went down. I was out cutting grass. I just about wanted to cut my hand off. What do you think?
At first I was not a fan. Let me put it this way. I was a fan, and then I wasn't a fan, and then I was a fan. And I'm glad we weren't on the air, because if we had been on the air, you guys would have watched me or listened to me reacting in real time.
FCC violations?
Yeah, probably. Because at first I'm like, Jalen Ramsey, that's great. That is a great three cornerback punch when you're talking about pairing him with Joey Porter Jr. and Slay there as well. I love that. Rotate people through. And then I saw Minkah got traded. And I know Minkah Fitzpatrick has not been who he had been. He's had a couple down years, hasn't been that great. And I think it has a lot to do with, Coach, you can speak to this more than I can, but they kind of switched to that one high safety, cover three. And Minkah's not that type of safety. So there was also some rumblings of him maybe giving up on plays and things like that last year. But then I was like, no, not Minkah like that. What are we doing? Are we in or are we out? Because you trade for Jalen Ramsey. You're saying, okay, we're going all in with Aaron Rodgers. Let's do this. Let's go as far as we can. And then you trade Minkah. So I was down. Then I'm down again, right? And then I see, okay, you get Jonnu Smith back. And I think that didn't make me excited about the trade, but it kind of evened me out a little bit, right? Because I am a Pratt Freiermuth fan. I think this kind of caps his ceiling, but I think you're going to see Jonnu Smith kind of be that wide receiver too. He plays a ton in the slot. Had Tua been healthy all last year, and I can't wait to get Paul's note on Jonnu as well, because if Tua played a full season last year, I think Jonnu Smith had over 1,000. He would have had over 1,000 yards. So I do think it makes sense. It goes back to what we talked about weeks ago, where Tomlin seems to be getting rid of the hostages. He wants volunteers. He wants people that are going to be there. He doesn't want hostages. And I think Minkah, like Pickens, is just another one of those guys that wasn't fitting where they were heading.
That's fair. I guess it's my turn. I've got a lot of thoughts on this, and I'll start off by saying this. I think Chris Greer's an absolute moron. Baseline.
Don't soften it. Tell us how you really feel.
I believe this wholeheartedly. I started a podcast basically to prove that point. That said, he has one redeeming quality as a general manager, and it's that he's very good in trades. Jalen Ramsey was a man on the outs, and he's had a lot of suitors for a couple of months. I knew full well that he would not be coming back as a member of the Miami Dolphins. It was a matter of when, not if. A lot of that hold-up, I believe, had to do with the fact that he was making $25 million this upcoming season. Why was he making $25 million this upcoming season as an age 31 cornerback, Paul? Well, it's because Chris Greer gave him a huge bonus after playing 1 year in which he was very so-so, and then he came back making more money and was actually worse last season. So losing Jalen Ramsey was not a problem with me. I knew he was out. I had emotionally disconnected. I don't care where he goes. Just try to minimize the salary cap implications. I thought this was going to be a Russell Wilson situation where we're going to trade him for a ham sandwich and end up paying most of his salary. Little did I know that we would end up getting something back for him. Now, I found out the same order that you did. I heard Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey almost straight up, and I about, what do you say? Something a brick, right? So I was elated, all right? And then I heard we lost Jonnu Smith in that deal, and we had a pick swap, so okay. Jonnu Smith is a nice player, had a good year for us last year, his career year at age 30. And he's got Drew Rosenhaus as a manager. So what does Drew Rosenhaus do? He recognizes patterns. That's why he's the man. That's why Tom Cruise plays him in movies, right? This guy's slick. He sees that Chris Greer hands out contract extensions and big money after one season over and over and over. He's done it for tackles. He's done it for running backs. He did it for a wide receiver. He did it for Jalen Ramsey, a corner. He goes, why not give it to my guy? He's making $4 million next year. I want $8 million. I want 10. I want 12. And Greer, because he's cash strapped, we have absolutely no cap space. He goes, can't do it. We'll find somewhere for you to go. So for Jonnu Smith, who's a genuinely good dude, had his best season ever for us in 1 year in Miami, that's great. Do I think he's going to have a career year next year? Nope. Do I think he was going to have a career year in Miami this year coming up? Nope. He was a product of a broken system. He ran an outrageous amount of over-the-middle stick routes that, because the run game was so bad, because the guard play was absolutely abysmal, a receiving threat tight end was exactly the safety valve that whoever we had playing quarterback needed. Jonnu was like right place, right time, and he made money off of it. So I feel good for the guy. Jalen Ramsey's a malcontent. This is a guy who had a back injury and couldn't even practice in Jacksonville. And then 10 days later, after getting traded, miraculously, he's playing in games. So I kind of know the Jalen Ramsey situation. Instinctually, he is still well above average. Elite at or near the line of scrimmage in press coverage. If you can force a quarterback to throw the ball inside of 3.5 seconds, he is great. But the speed is gone, fellas. Crossing routes, anything deep, they were moving him back and forth, traveling last year. He did not do that the year before. They were way better when he and Xavier Howard would just play one side of the field. The communication was solid, and everybody knew where he was going to be. When he started chasing receivers around, Garrett Wilson gave him a freaking ride last year. Don't go back and watch that film if you're a Pittsburgh fan. Jalen Ramsey is not the – and I like how Coach Bradford set it off. There's a nickel cornerback. He's not an outside boundary guy anymore. He might have some middle of the field safety in him, at age 30, 31. So there's a place for him. The instincts aren't going anywhere. He's still an unbelievable football player from a mental standpoint. Very physical guy, has some blitzing upside. Like I said, I love the way he plays around the line of scrimmage. But just the pure cover one-on-one, Ramsey's going to eliminate that guy. He's not that guy anymore. Getting back Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Dolphins, I got to say, it makes a lot of sense because the safety room was trash. It makes a lot of sense 2 days later now looking at it with the safeties that they have, Melifonwu and Ashton Davis adding a third safety who has some a three area coverage ability in Minka. He can play that high post. He can play in the slot. He can play in the box. He's got some versatility. I think one of the reasons that he became a malcontent in Pittsburgh was because last year, if you look at the snap counts where he played, they pretty much just put him into the post. And they said, okay, he's really good at that, but on pass plays, he's good at center field, cover ground, don't need to make a tackle, use the instincts, use the speed to make a play on the ball. But when you're that last guy, you're also the last line of defense. When Derrick Henry breaks through the line and he's got 20 yards of build-up speed and it's Derrick Henry versus Minka Fitzpatrick, Minka's making business decisions, man. I know that. I was not upset when he left Miami because Minka doesn't really like to tackle. Minka wants to play an athletic position and extend his career, and when he left, I think he was 24 years old, so it made a lot of sense at the time. Getting him back, 3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler. Hold on, I want to get this out for you guys right here. I am excited to have Minka back in the aqua and orange, fellas. I will say, honestly, I don't think anybody lost that trade. I think Pittsburgh's loading up for now. Miami did get the youngest player in the trade. I think it works out both sides. I think Miami got about $10 million in cap space, trading 2 starters for 1. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think everybody can come away a little bit happy and a little bit sad, and I think that's what a successful trade looks like.
Paul, I'm all... first of all, that was a tremendous breakdown. One that Mel Kiper will be proud of.
I feel like he got a lot off his chest there.
I'm holding that in for days, fellas.
And I don't want to rain on your parade because I hate to be the guy to follow up that, but I'm going to look at this from a pure common sense standpoint because that's about really all I try to have, and that maybe is really all I do have because I don't necessarily have the knowledge that you put into here, Paul. All I can say with Pittsburgh is this. You better freaking win, and you better freaking win this year because you need to be ready for Will Howard or Drew Aller to be your quarterback for the next 10 years because there is zero money to pay your offense. This is a team that has led the NFL in defensive spending, I think, for the last 5 years, if I'm not wrong. Jalen Ramsey brings you a $7 million cap hit worse than what Minka Fitzpatrick did, and considering the fact that you weren't very successful at safety to begin with, you lose in that position. And is Jalen Ramsey really still, as Paul mentioned, an island cover guy? When he was one-on-one with Garrett Wilson last year, he didn't really have that ability. And the one thing that we know in the NFL is that Jalen Ramsey is that press corner. Well, quarterbacks now are more athletic, namely Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in your division. They can keep the play going. So man-to-man coverage, a tight press, I'm not sure that works out that well. But playing aside, you bring in Aaron Rodgers this year, albeit on what you could consider a really cheap deal. But all you have done since Mike Tomlin really came out of COVID is spent on defense. You, of course, get Jalen Ramsey this year. You draft Derek Harmon in the first round. Peyton Wilson, you draft high last year. And oh, by the way, TJ Watt's deal still not done. He's going to be making 45, maybe 47 or $48 million by the time this contract comes in. So if you're Pittsburgh, you are praying to God that you win this year because it just gets worse and worse for you financially on defense. And what I can't understand, and I understand what Coach said a few minutes ago about you have to have a defense that's being able to keep up with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and the likes, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. You also have to have an offense that can score more than 20 points a game. And that has been Pittsburgh's bugaboo for the last 5 to 6 years since Big Ben retired. They can't score points. So while I understand that you want a shutdown corner, and this is a guy who can probably help your secondary room, why aren't you looking wayward for some offensive help? Whether that was through the draft, whether that was through a trade, whether it was through free agency, you lost cap space with this deal. If you traded for Jalen Ramsey and you were going to get cap space, I get it, because then you can make another deal somewhere else and it makes sense and you can open up some channels of communication. But all you're doing is hampering yourself even more. And to Paul's point, it's not like Jalen Ramsey's on the final year of his contract. He has a 3-year extension that's kicking in. So this is a situation where if you're Pittsburgh, you talk about win now mode, you got to win now. Because if you don't, you are so strapped on the defensive side of the football that none of your young guys that are going to grow up and eventually need contracts are going to be able to get the money. And you're going to be sitting there with a defense that can, in theory, make big plays in an offense that can't score points and shoot a BB gun at a 22 fight. So I'm not a fan of this trade because of what it hurts Pittsburgh for the future. I understand you want to win now, but guys, I can't understand for the life of me how you think this is going to benefit your team moving forward. And I just don't think, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, I still don't think this is a Super Bowl team this year. And if that's the case, you've really put yourself in a hole for at least the next half decade.
It feels like if we're not going to be good, we should at least be entertaining.
It does.
I am going to push back a little bit.
That's my honest takeaway.
Listen, I don't think, and they're still not going to win the division, and there's a very real chance that 3 teams in the AFC North make it to the playoffs. I think this is you're trying to do the best you can with what you have, and I do think this makes them more competitive. I've read Ramsey might even go to safety at a lot of times, which will better because you talked about that speed dropping down a little bit. He can play in the box a little bit. He can hit. I think he was like top 5 against the run at the cornerback position last year. So, that fits all there too. I like the 2 tight end sets with Jonnu, putting Jonnu out there. But even like according to SpotRack to the cap stuff, they still have $25 million in cap space left. That's plenty of room to still get a deal done with Watt. I think. And then when you make the trade, they traded 2027 picks. So they still have most of their picks for next year. So even if this doesn't work with Rodgers, and it likely doesn't, again, I'm not touting them up as Super Bowl winners here, but I'm just saying they didn't really give up a lot. They still have a first, a second, potentially 3 third-round picks next year because of projected compensatory. They still have 2 fourths. They gave up a 5th and picked up a 7th. So even if they do end up running it back next year with a Will Howard or signing somebody else or drafting somebody else, I do think this move makes sense to go ahead and pull the trigger on some veterans. I do think like what you're talking about Ramsey in 2 years. What is he? It's probably nothing. And they probably are going to eat some cap this year or for that. But for right now, I mean, I would much rather be going into this year with look at the roster overhaul, right? I would much rather have this year's roster of the Pittsburgh Steelers versus last year's roster of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Coach, I would have had this roster in 2021. I'm not sure I'd.
I would 100% have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are kind of a decade or 2 behind.
Yep.
in the style of the game. They're still playing the 1970s.
Yeah.
So Myron Cope, they're still, I don't know how long the Terrible Towels can make it, right? They still play on a grass field. It's a terrible surface. Defense wins championships, which I love, right? I'm a defensive guy. Probably won 3 or 4 games they shouldn't have, didn't score a touchdown, right? I don't think you can be the Baltimore Ravens and not score an offensive touchdown in 7 weeks in today's NFL and win a Super Bowl with a Trent Dilfer. I don't think that exists anymore. So I think that they need a huge overhaul in the front office, and of course it's a family owned. So, I just think they've fallen a little bit behind, and they haven't innovated. They haven't innovated on defense. They haven't innovated on offense. Where's the trickery? Where's the open up? Where's some different defensive fronts, some exotics, some 3 high safety? You see everybody in the league on defense putting 7 guys on the line of scrimmage and doing some exotics. I don't see any exotics from them. They're a 3-4 to Nick's point cover 3, cover 1, right? Those quarterbacks in that league, against with those receivers, they can throw the out route and the hitch route in their sleep. They don't even have to, see what the coverage is. And there's no disguise, there's no there's no movement.
Yeah.
And certainly at some levels, at the high school level and the college level, do a few things and do them right. But at the NFL, you got those guys. It's a full-time job. You can get pretty exotic.
All right, we'll leave it at that, I guess. But we'll see what Pittsburgh decides to do. And they got to, like we said, we got to win now. There's no question they have to win now because the next few years are going to be interesting. And that brings us to our featured segment of the night. And Paul, I led you astray. We were going to start with Buffalo on this, but I think we should start with Pittsburgh because it's only fair based on what we've been talking about. Based on the Jalen Ramsey trade, we thought it'd be fun as pseudo general managers ourselves to go around the room and identify one trade for each of the 3 local NFL teams that needs to happen that will make the team better heading into 2025. So we're going to start with you on this, Paul, and start with Pittsburgh. You have between now until the start of the season to make a trade that will help Pittsburgh get better. What are you looking at for the Steelers, who have a few months left here before Game 1?
Well, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and I hope the NFL teams are paying attention, because I've helped 3 NFL franchises tonight at the cost of $0. So I'll start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to make sure that they get better. This goes against a lot of things that I believe in, but we're going to do it. So I looked at the Steelers, and Coach Bradford was absolutely correct. The offense there's just not a lot there. There's some pieces, there's some parts, but they're missing a lot. What are they missing most of all? They need a wide receiver, not named DK Metcalf. So I looked around the league. We're trying to make this realistic. I wanted to find some guys on the outs, some guys that could potentially be available that would fit the salary cap situation, right? So I looked to the Titans, kind of going through a little bit of a rebuild themselves. New quarterback coming in, wide receiver room going to be in some turmoil. Had a guy that they drafted a couple of years ago in the first round that just hasn't panned out. They just declined to pick up his 5th-year option. So here's a guy with no home after this year anyway. Team potentially looking at this guy going, unless he shows out this year, we're going to lose him for nothing. So why don't we get rid of Treylon Burks, whose 2025 salary is $4.57 million. So the Steelers get Treylon Burks. They get a big-bodied receiver, boundary receiver, can work as a good blocker in Arthur Smith's system. I don't know if you watched this guy in college. Huge dude, but some great run after catch. He's a big guy, but he's quicker than he looks. So you trade him. You give up a 7th-round pick that you just got, the compensatory pick from Miami. And you also trade a linebacker because Tennessee needs some defensive help. You trade Nick Herbig, whose cap this year, his cap number is $1.6 million. So you're going to lose about $2.5 million in cap space. So you have enough to cover it. It should be fine. Burke's situation, I mentioned they declined the 5th-year option. He's seen as a low-risk, high-reward bargain price. And, of course, Herbig becomes expendable because of the T.J. Watt is going to come back. That's a foregone conclusion. And then they drafted Jack Sawyer, who I think is absolutely going to show out this training camp. I think Herbig becomes kind of a luxury pick, a guy that you don't need to keep on the roster anyway. You use some defensive depth to increase your offense, and I think Treylon Burks makes a whole lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have 2 legitimate receivers then.
Paul will compensate you fairly for if that trade happens, because I'm not sure that Omar Khan's got your phone number, but we'll compensate you fairly for that.
I appreciate it.
Coach Bradford, you're next for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Try to make them better. I know in your heart of hearts you don't want them to be, but give us a trade that could make Pittsburgh better heading into the year.
Yeah, I love Paul's thought process. I'm gonna go running back. So I think they need offense, and I think you need a great running back in the NFC North, and they don't have one. So I'm gonna say, that Pittsburgh, doesn't get the deal done with T.J. Watt. All right, and T.J. Watt, is going to end up in Seattle with the Seahawks. He's going to go in the NFC. He's not going to be in the AFC. All right, and they're going to get Kenneth Walker from Seattle. Okay, who is kind of your, run game AFC North guy. He's been a little bit injured. But really nice career at Michigan State, so you're thinking Big Ten football there. And obviously, there'll be some draft picks or something else in there that, Seattle might give. And I think you've got DK Metcalf in the room saying, hey, here's another guy, that can help us. And you got Mike McDonald, who's a 3-4-4-3 guy. From the Ravens, knows about T.J. Watt, and I think he can use him in a little different way to kind of help him a little bit extend his career.
I like Wayne's thinking. It almost makes me want to go next, but I'm not, Nick Altman.
And I'm wearing my Seahawks shirt.
the reason I hate this is because Coach Bradford almost nailed the Dallas trade with Shador and everybody else in
Micah,
way back when.
Garrett.
So I don't like that because if the Steelers trade Watt for a running back, I'll become a Ravens fan. It's on the air right now. I will join you
some
in
other
Baltimore.
things, an O lineman.
I don't know that there's enough.
Yeah.
Hold
Well,
on.
wait a minute
Have you
now.
watched Kenneth Walker?
I like Kenneth Walker. That's
what's
not a Kenneth
Watt's
Walker
productivity? How many games did he play last year? How many games did he play the year before?
Yeah,
and
his sack count is
to
falling
Paul's
down.
point, you've got Jack Sawyer is T.J. Watt.
Sure.
Put that down. Peyton Wilson, Nick Herbig. So you got those young guys. You talk about them being long in the teeth. Don't give away a young guy because Herbig's a good player.
I like him too.
And an edge guy. Let's take the guy that's got 290,000 miles on his tires.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and the guy's a great player, but, you know, the Watts, they play so hard every
It's the Belichick
snap.
principle. Get rid of him a year early as opposed to a year too late. I can
Correct.
see it.
Sure.
Absolutely.
No, listen, I'm a Kenneth Walker fan. I've drafted him in fantasy. He's done well for me. That's not my fear. But you're right. I guess it would depend on what else the compensation is there. All right, let me jump in. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, I also looked at the Seahawks roster because I considered Zach Charbonnet for both the Bills and the Steelers. So I think you're right on there.
I'd probably be
I
more okay with
loved it.
Charbonnet. Yeah, I like Charbonnet a lot. All right, I'm going to the wide receiver well as well. I do like Treylon Burks. I worry a little bit about the injury history and the cost. I think, giving up Nick Herbig for Burks, I think would be pretty big of a cost. So I'm going a different way. I'm going wide receiver, and I'm going cheap. And I'm saying the Pittsburgh Steelers will trade a 6th-round pick for John Mechie III out of Houston. Now, Pittsburgh's offense has taken a massive leap with DK Metcalf. But then when you go and trade Pickens, there's a huge hole at wide receiver too. Jonnu Smith is a big man. He's still not big enough to fill that hole. And Ben Skoranek and Scotty Miller, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, that doesn't do anything for me either. So I really like the idea of trading for Mechie, who at just 24 years old went for 254 yards and a touchdown a season ago after missing his rookie year with an injury. Now, I think that he can play outside, but what I really like about him is the low risk, high reward, right? He's only going to have about a $2.5 million cap hit if he coming into this year. He's still on a rookie contract that runs for 2 more years, and he has a 2nd-round pick value. He was a high 2nd-round pick coming through there. So Houston has been rumored to want to get rid of him. Their wide receiver room is stacked with Nico Collins and Tank Dell when Dell gets healthy. Plus, they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, so they obviously don't feel like they value Mechie a lot. So I like it for a small, again, that low risk, high reward. Give Rodgers another outside receiver to pair with Metcalf.
Jeez, Nick, that's a smart trade. Pittsburgh needs a receiver, another one.
Yeah,
I really do think that they need a receiver. But you know what they need to do first? Because Coach Bradford's on a roll tonight. Almost like I brought him back knowing that he would take my side. TJ Watt's got to go bye-bye. I'm sorry. You cannot pay this guy $45 million after you trade for a more expensive Jalen Ramsey, after you continue to draft defense and know that Derek Harmon, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, those guys, if you want them to be around a while, they're going to get more expensive. They just don't have the room to do it, and you have to get some offense. You have to find ways to give weapons to whatever quarterback you're going to have post Aaron Rodgers. I thought the DK Metcalf signing, while a little expensive, was a good one, because it gives you a receiver with control at 27 years old for 4 years. Another guy who's got control at 29 years for 3 more years on a team loaded with wide receiver talent is Chris Godwin out of Tampa Bay. And I think the Buccaneers would be more than thrilled with over $30 million in cap space next year to trade for TJ Watt, get better on defense. They're still going to be left with Mike Evans and Emeka Ibuka amongst some of their tight ends as well. And Pittsburgh gets back a 29-year-old Godwin, who's a perfect wide receiver to DK Metcalf, and you get him for 3 more years. It's not going to cost you the moon and the stars. It's not going to force you to rethink your offense, but what will do, it gives Aaron Rodgers a second weapon this year, and for the next 2 years at minimum, you know that whatever quarterback you have coming into the locker room is going to have 2 veteran wide receivers under 30 that will be able to make plays. And TJ Watt's now off your books. I just think they're not going to do it. They're not going to trade TJ. I just think they need to. And you get rid of defense for offense, but at the same time, you save cap space and you give yourself a better position for the future. So I'm with Coach. I think TJ Watt's got to go. I love the guy, ultimate competitor, but if your defense is as good as you say it is, you can make do without him. And I think the $45 million would be better used elsewhere, namely Chris Godwin from Tampa Bay.
Now, that's something I would give Watt away for.
You're not giving him away. You're trading.
Well, yeah, you know what I mean.
Giving him away.
You know what I mean.
And I think that, whatever a TJ Watt trade would look like, too, I think part of the equation here has to be, and I think this is where we get a little bit into the weeds with what would they get back for him. And I think the reason why Wayne and I probably went 1 for 1 here is it's a catch-22 with TJ, right? Because if you're going to trade him, you're going to want to trade him to a really good team because you're going to, teams only have 1 year of control on him. But then the salary cap makes it so you can't sign him. So if you're TJ and you're TJ's agent, you're saying, well, I want to make the most money possible, but I also want to win games. You don't really have that luxury. So trading him to a good team is not going to net you a first and a player or 2 seconds. I just don't think it is, even with a player that caliber. Am I wrong in saying that, guys?
I think your best point was that Emeka Egbuka makes one of those top 2, their top flight receivers, Evans and Godwin, makes one of them expendable. So just finding the right piece to what's the most I can get for one of these receivers, and I think an all-pro outside linebacker would be hard to turn down if you're Tampa Bay.
And Tampa's got the cap space just under $30,000 too.
Didn't they just re-sign Godwin either this year or last year?
Just this
last year.
Offseason, yeah.
Yeah, just right. So again, I just think still another viable option, and it gets you some money. It's not a super expensive trade for Tampa because ultimately they're going to get rid of $20 million on the books. So we'll see, but there you go. 2 of us are trading TJ Watt. The other 2 are not trading TJ Watt, and that's Pittsburgh. So there you go. The most drama of the offseason, but they were supposed to get rid of that, right? George Pickens left. There's no drama there anymore in Pittsburgh. My ass. All right, let's move on to a team with less drama. Oh, I'm sorry, Cleveland. Nick Artman, you get the floor here. The Cleveland Browns need to make a trade. I really hope you don't trade for a quarterback because I don't know if they can fit any more in their QB room. Who do you have the Browns trading for, and what does it look like?
All right, so if the Browns... I look at their roster. It's not terrible, but I look at the wide receiver room, and they need a lot of help there, too. So I'm pulling the trigger on another wide receiver trade. And I hate it because I actually like this trade for the Browns, and, well, we all know my feelings about Cleveland. So the trade package looks like this. The Browns will receive wide receiver Romeo Doubs and a 2026 4th-round pick, and the Packers will receive cornerback Greg Newsome and a 25 6th-round pick. They did not pick up Newsome's fifth-year option. He's probably slotted in as their nickelback right now. I think this gives Cleveland a high upside wide receiver who fits their offense. They get a little draft pick capital back as they're kind of in the middle of this. I'll call it a rebuild, even though they probably won't. And on the Green Bay side, their cornerback depth is thin after losing Jair Alexander. So Newsome on his 4th year of the rookie deal. Browns already declined it. He walks next year. Dobbs still has 2 cheap years remaining, and he is a great outside receiver in this offense.
Like it. Cleveland needs receiver help or whoever the quarterback is. Over to you, Wayne. Trade for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as Nick here. I'm gonna go Cortland Sutton of the Broncos.
It's a good one.
To Cleveland for future 2nd and 4th round picks.
I like
that
it.
Probably gets it done. Yeah, I mean, Denver probably doesn't want to move him at this point, but I think when you offer a package like that might make him rethink it.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think you look at with Cleveland, draft capital helps, but if you can get someone back who also is helpful too, Nick and Wayne are on the same page here.
And
All
you
right,
can
Paul.
throw one of the quarterbacks in, just put their names in a hat and just draw one out and throw it over there.
and you know what? The name might pop up that's currently not in the hat. It's Deshaun Watson. He may end up playing this year for Cleveland. Who the heck knows? It's quarterback stew over in Berea, Ohio. Paul Adamzek, what's the trade for you for the Cleveland Browns?
Soon to be Brook Park.
Right, the Brook Park
Right.
Browns. I don't disagree with the Browns' need at wide receiver, but I did a receiver trade for the Steelers already, so I wanted to go in a different direction. Took a look at the Browns' defense. The secondary with Newsome looks great. The front five, front seven, however you want to look at it, the along the defensive line looks really stout. But what they lack are off-ball linebackers. They basically have Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's coming off a major injury. Does he come back and play to the level he was? Honestly, does he come back and play at all? We don't know. So I went and looked around the league for starting linebackers, off-ball linebackers that might be available for trade. I found this is the most interesting one I did, I think. If you look at the Texans, starting linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair. I don't know if you guys know the name.
Oh, yeah.
Starting linebacker, he's played a couple of different places. He went to the
Dirtiest
Texans 2
player
years
in the
ago.
NFL.
I was just, thank you, Wade. So he started 11 games for him last year, had like 106 tackles. Then he got like the latest hit imaginable on Trevor Lawrence well after a slide. He got up, he was on the sideline, he was drinking a Gatorade, and then Azeez comes in and like hits him straight in the head. So he got suspended by the Players Association for 3 games, and then the Texans did not play him anything after that. But the guy can play.
Fits in Cleveland.
Listen, man, Jim Schwartz is kind of one of those, like, listen, if you can't beat him up kind of guys.
You can't beat him,
So
beat him.
Listen, man. So I have Azeez Al-Shaair coming over from the Texans for a conditional 4th-round pick from the Browns, a pick that would escalate to a 3rd if Al-Shaair plays 70% or more of the defensive snaps in 2025-2026. The Browns keep their roster intact. They have to pay a little bit more in the salary cap books plus draft capital for a productive season from Al-Shaair. I mentioned that they have very little off-ball linebacker other than Koramoah. Houston is stacked at linebacker. They've got Christian Harris. They've got Blake Cashman. This isn't a guy that they're going to really miss anyway. Shaair is on a 2-year deal, so Cleveland comes in. They've got control of him for 2 years. The cap hit for the Browns is $5.2 million, which is manageable because they still have over $16.9 million in space. So it makes sense from a cap perspective. It makes sense from a on the field perspective. You're not wrong, Coach. He is kind of a dirty player, but listen, if you're gonna have a dirty player, do you want him on your team or do you want him playing against your team? I want that guy on my side.
Yeah, I mean he's an AFC North guy, right? You're going to muck it up, you know. It's a physical game, so I love it.
All right, speaking to the AFC North, I guess I'm making bold moves here because I had Chris Godwin, TJ Watt in my trades for Pittsburgh. I'm going to go really big for Cleveland's trade because I think they need to make a splash. There have been rumors, and maybe that's all they are, rumors circulating since Myles Garrett re-signed, that Cleveland may need to move a really big defensive player. And I've heard this rumor for a couple years now. I don't know if it's true, but I'm going to run with it. I think Denzel Ward could be on the chopping block. I understand that he is their cornerstone piece, but with the money you're paying him, and to all of our points, they're going to need cap space for down in the future. I think Denzel Ward could be expendable. What does Cleveland need? To everyone's point, a receiver. They need outside linebacker help as well, but I think wide receiver is the way to go. So I'm going to make a massive deal here. There's a team not far from Cleveland that desperately needs help in the secondary. Cincinnati was completely torched last season in the cornerback position. They need somebody that can be their cornerstone piece to lock guys down and to make things happen. And so I'm going to zig when they zag. I'm going to say that the contract that was signed in the offseason matters not anymore, and the Cleveland Browns trade Denzel Ward to the Cincinnati Bengals for T. Higgins.
Yikes.
And Cincinnati gets much better. in the secondary, which they need. Their defense is not capable of stopping anybody. It is a runaway train offense, as we saw last year, whoever plays the Bengals. They get their guy in the secondary to shore that up, and Cleveland gets arguably the biggest and best target outside of maybe your top 5 wide receivers that you have. And that would be my, maybe not realistic, but I think the biggest trade that Cleveland can make that would help both teams. And could you imagine Cleveland-Cincinnati twice a season with that trade being pulled off?
Listen,
Paul Brown's rolling over. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It would be very interesting. You're not going to trade in your division, I don't think, and play against that guy twice.
That's the biggest thing.
No. That's why Hallie pulled that realistic draft trade graphic down as fast as she could.
Hey, you know what? I'm looking for needs for both teams. I'm trying to help out our fellow AFC North mates, Wayne, Nick. We all want some equality in the division. Well, Wayne doesn't, but we all want some equality in the division. So Lamar Jackson can be somewhat tested, and I think this would.
Hey, man, Lamar Jackson. I mean, what was it the other day? Who has won more playoff games than Lamar Jackson? Was it like Mark Sanchez or something? I saw a graphic. I mean, so I'm a Baltimore fan, but you want a blockbuster trade. We talked about that last year. I would have taken Fields in Baltimore and sent Lamar to Chicago.
Let the record show that in the TV green room a few months back, guys, Wayne and I discussed a trade that would send Lamar Jackson for Justin Fields to Chicago. So in an alternate universe and reality, that's going to happen. So if we ever do one for the whole AFC North, you know which direction Wayne's going, and just about everyone's head's going to pop out of their skull. All right, finally the Buffalo Bills. It's a tricky team because again, do they really need anyone? Well, they just need a mental boost. Maybe they needed to trade for a great psychologist ahead of the AFC Championship game would be the best thing that they can trade for. We'll start with you on this, Paul. One trade for the Buffalo Bills that makes them better.
Okay, so this one was very tough. I'm going to be honest with you. I had a whole trade scenario worked out, and then I went back and actually looked at rosters, and I was like, oh, that guy's actually already on his roster. So that didn't work out. So I had to actually put a GM hat on here, and I said, listen, we're probably with the cap space, what you have on the roster, you're not trying to get worse and then trying to build for the future. You got to win now, okay? So what I went back to who's on their 5th-year option. We're looking at young players. Who can we get rid of that'll help us cap-wise, who we may not re-sign next year? We got to get rid of this guy before we lose him for nothing. If we're going to trade for something, we want to bring something in that might help us right now, but also helps us a little bit in the future.
Yeah.
Best I came up with. This was a tough one. So I have the Buffalo Bills trading for Trevor Penning from the New Orleans Saints. They're going to get offensive tackle. He was the 11th overall pick 4 years ago. Trevor Penning and a 4th-round pick, because the Saints have 2 of them in 2026. And they're going to trade their edge, A.J. Epinesa, who's got a $2.93 million cap hit in 2025, and he's not under contract next year. So Trevor Penning, they already declined his 5th-year option. He's got a $3.5 million cap hit in 2025. So they're going to lose about $610,000 in cap space. They've got about 4.2 remaining. That's fine. So for the Bills, why does it work? They've got Joey Bosa. They've got Greg Rousseau. They've got rookie Landon Jackson. They've got pass rushing depth. That makes Epinesa a luxury in a contract year. Let's take a look at the offensive line. Deion Dawkins is great at left tackle. He's not going to get supplanted. Take a look at the other side. Spencer Brown played all the snaps last year. Yeah. He's good. I would say if you're looking at the top 32 right tackles in the NFL, the starting right tackles, I'd put him right between 16 and 20. He's not the top half, but he's not terrible either, and another guy who's in a contract year. So what you're going to do is you're going to have Spencer Brown, and you're going to have a former first-round pick, Trevor Penning, at age 26, kind of battling it out for a year. Could eventually compete for that starting spot in 2026 if they don't extend Spencer Brown. Plus, you're picking up that extra 4th-round pick. So as a GM anyway, listen, that's a pick in the top 4 rounds. You look at what's that, 100, pick 160, 175. So a pick in the top 200. For the Saints, you look at a guy who can go over and start right away. Their defensive ends are Chase Young and Cam Jordan. Chase Young is only 26, but man, he maybe have 26 games he's played in the last 3 years. Cam Jordan is age 35. Epinesa gives him a steady, disruptive edge, proven production. He had 6.5 sacks last year. I think
sense.
Penning is a guy with a lot of athletic upside that just didn't work out at a team kind of in flux. So I think just a fresh area. I mean, the Bills, it doesn't seem to matter who they put along that offensive line. No. They seem to get production out of them anyway, which tells me that it's a good offensive line room. They've got good coaching. They've got a good plan. Put an athlete in that room. Give them somebody with some actual athletic upside, and I think he becomes a real boon to Buffalo. I hate the idea of making Buffalo better, but I think Trevor Penning is a realistic option for that team.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely a great trade. And again, Buffalo's not going to be doing anything super crazy. So I don't know. We'll see. Spencer Brown's a wild card. There are a couple positions on this team where you say wild card. Are you sure? Matt Milano is one of them. Spencer Brown is one of them. So I like the trade. I like the trade a lot for Buffalo. Nick Artman, you're up next for the Buffalo Bills. What do you think?
Well, I did the Bills last in this exercise, and I almost went wide receiver again, and I thought, I can't do 3 wide receiver trades in a row. So then I went through, and I said, okay, and I worked up. They need some cornerback help. I don't love that defensive backfield. A little weak at safety, a little weak at cornerback. And then I realized I was starting to draw up a trade for Newsome. Well, I had already sent him off to Green Bay. So
do a 3-way, man. Come on, make it really good. Spin it around.
God.
So I went back to the drawing board again. And, I just think that I want to see the Bills make a home run swing. Right, I like the offense. I don't really think they need a wide receiver too. I joked about putting one together. I would have loved to see them go after like a Terry McLaurin. Washington's not giving somebody like that up. So then I start looking at the cornerback. Okay, that's not okay. Getting a cornerback too. I don't think that's sexy enough to get them over Kansas City. So here's a good one. I'm going back to the AFC North. I'm going the same direction that Isaac went, and I'm going to send Daquan Jones, defensive tackle. He's got about a $7 million cap hit in 25, 33-year-old nose tackle. They can afford to get rid of him after drafting TJ Sanders. Ed Oliver is still there as well. Ogunjobi when he's deciding to be healthy. And I like what you said, Paul. I like what you said about them needing, or they have that good pass rushing depth. But the problem is Joey Bosa's already injured. So you're going to send Daquan Jones and a 2026 second-round pick. Go big. Take that second-round pick and go after Trey Hendrickson. He's going to bring a huge cap hit in $15 million. You're going to have to move some things around. A 3-time Pro Bowler, 17.5 sacks in 20. Led the league in sacks last year as well. This gives them an elite pass rushing upgrade to disrupt Mahomes, finally get over that hump in the playoffs. As you can see, the Eagles kind of left open that success of just getting in the face of Pat Mahomes. And actually, I think this makes sense for the Bengals too, because they go out and now they have a defensive tackle that they can go around and build around. I don't necessarily think, or maybe they don't think, that they're in rebuild mode when you go out and sign both. You re-sign Higgins and Jamar Chase, but then, maybe Shamar Stewart, maybe you get that contract figured out and can kind of fill that hole from Trey Hendrickson, and you beef up a need on that defensive tackle as well. So again, I'm sending Daquan Jones and a second-round pick, and I'm swinging for the fences in Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, that's a great one. Could you imagine if they could get him signed? Holy crap, would that be something else?
It would be huge.
He might be the one missing piece, because as we've talked about, what does Buffalo need to do? Get to Mahomes. That's the way to win the Super Bowl. That's the only thing else they need to do.
Yep.
All right, Wayne, I'm curious. See what you got for Buffalo here.
Well, I was going to go with Hendrickson, so I'm going to go plan B. And if we're going to go big like that, let's go big. All right, so let's trade for Myles Garrett. Leaves the Browns. All right.
I almost went there too.
He goes to Buffalo for Curtis Samuel. All right. And a second-round and a fourth-round pick. And Cleveland gets a good wide out, a couple draft picks. And, Myles Garrett gets to play in a couple playoff games and see if he can be the difference.
Oh, hang on a minute. Andrew Barry is calling at this moment. He's got a sound effect that he wants to play for me. Okay, yeah, I just figured you should know that from Andrew Barry's perspective. Well, could you imagine though all that drama in the offseason, Wayne? Right, Garrett wants to be traded, doesn't want to be traded, and he gets to make a contract. That would be something to be able to pull that off for Garrett and his agent. That you get the team to re-sign you for that amount of money, and then ship you away. I don't know. That would be something.
Kevin Durant just went for 5 second-round picks. Can you imagine how many second-round picks it would take to get Myles Garrett?
It's Cleveland. You don't know what it would take.
Can we put language in the trade that Buffalo has to pay for 5% of the down payment on the new stadium?
Well, I was just going to say
Yeah,
they get Samuel, they get Epinesa, and they get part of Pagolo's natural gas and oil royalties from West Virginia for the next 10 years.
And the Pagula's gotta move the Sabres to Cleveland or something like that.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, honestly,
We'll get there.
The Cleveland Monsters have more wins every year than the Sabres anyway, and they're in a different league. So
That's right.
All right, so I went cornerback here because I think that's probably the one position that I am most concerned about. Wide receiver, I'm not. Josh Allen will make anybody great. He made that clear last year. So my number one option would have been Charvarius Ward from Indianapolis, but they just signed him to a new contract, and I'm not sure the Colts are really in sell mode because I think they want to see what they have with Anthony Richardson, provided he's healthy. So I'm going to go with another, now current Niners cornerback, and a guy that used to play with Charvarius Ward. I actually talked to him one-on-one at the Super Bowl. Really, really nice guy. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to trade a second-round pick to the San Francisco 49ers for Diamador Lenore. One of the, in my view, top 20 cornerbacks in the NFL. He's got a very relatively cheap salary, a guy who just defends the heck out of everything, and you can put him anywhere. You can put him on the slot, you can put him on the outside, you can put him in nickel if you want, although Taron Johnson has that spot pretty much locked down. I just think at 26 years old, really good value for a guy who could be part of your secondary for a long time and grow up with a Cole Bishop at the safety spot. I like Diamador Lenore as a trade target for the Buffalo Bills to maybe help with that pass defense against Patrick Mahomes and the like. So there you go. There you have it. The trades that we have made for the Steelers, the Bills, and the Browns. We went lofty, gentlemen. Paul was very more calculated. We went lofty.
Well, I went for realistic. I was trying here, fellas. I'm interviewing for jobs right now. Chris Greer's going to get fired in about 9 months, so listen.
Well, will you rescind the Minka for Jalen trade? I think Steeler fans.
Not at all.
Okay, all right. Well, I tried.
No. It was that was my favorite part. It was disgruntled former Dolphins defensive back for former Dolphins disgruntled defensive back. So that was an interesting Monday.
Welcome to Monday in the off season. Wayne, we appreciate you joining us, man. We can't wait to have you on more often here. I know things are busy going on with high school football and the like, but hopefully it's been a good summer so far.
Yeah, got 2 summer concerts in. Got the Lita Ford concert in down at Youngstown State. So
nice.
The Queen of Heavy Metal. And this past weekend, shout out to Tim Flynn, head wrestling coach at WVU. Tim and Tanya, who spent 20 plus years here at Edinburgh. So we went to the Rick Springfield summer concert. Wang Chung, John Waite, Paul Young, and Rick Springfield Saturday night. So had a blast hanging out with them. And best wishes to WVU Wrestling this winter. Got a couple pieces of gear, so I'll make sure I wear some WVU wrestling gear on sometime as well.
Love it, man.
So Wayne, if you're up for it next week, we're gonna preview next week's show in advance. We don't have anything planned yet, but we have a plan now. I think you need to pop on and give us your top 10 best concerts you have ever attended.
Oh yeah.
I think that is a great top 10 list as we go through the summer. Just something fun here, but I got a feeling you got a few good ones that you could
Absolutely.
Really
you got it.
Starting the list right now.
Yeah,
Wayne,
he's already got all 10 written down right now.
Somewhere in the art.
I'll come in. I'll have the concert T-shirt on, and then I'll go off, and I'll have the next one on. Can I do it by T-shirts?
I think if you include pyrotechnics with that too, it'd be the greatest reveal of a top 10 list we've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. That'd be a ton of fun. This was fun too. Hopefully these trades come to fruition, or if you're a fan of our teams, maybe not. Who knows? We all have something at stake except for Wayne, who's sitting in the catbird seat of another AFC Championship game appearance, or at least divisional round for Lamar and the Ravens. But who knows? Maybe you'll get traded too. Who knows? All right.
Happy Independence Day. Enjoy
Happy
your families.
July 4th, everybody. Be safe. Enjoy the food. We will
your
see
fingers.
you back here on Monday. Yes. Grill safety tips. Look them up if you haven't already. We're back on Monday, 9 a.m.
Hey, have all your fingers on Monday.
Make sure to show us in the comments, like, subscribe. Gem City Sports Podcast Network. Brought to you by Rebich Investments. Our next show, Monday, 9 o'clock for Flagship City Sports Talk. Take care, everybody.
Fins up, baby.